57 years after his first invasion, Gaskul Mac Uruk Traka is back, now heading a greenskin invasion force larger than any in the history of the Imperium. After early warnings of the incoming horde were received, Imperial reinforcements are racing to land their troops on Armageddon before the invasion fleet's arrival in system. The cold calculations of war are grim. Despite the largest navy presence in Imperial records, tacticians predict the orbital war to be lost within 4 to 9 days. Once the war in the heavens is lost, the fleet will withdraw and regroup, leaving the planetary forces to fend for themselves. Any surviving naval forces will from there on engage in hit-and-run harassment warfare until such a time that the space around Armageddon can be reclaimed. Armageddon and its hive cities are defended by the Armageddon Steel Legion, a fighting force most recognized for their rebreather masks, ochre armor, and expertise in mechanized warfare. Millions of these fighting men now create the backbone of the Armageddon defensive force. Around each hive city across the planet, vast landing fields are cleared, either hurriedly paved with rockcrete, or simply ground flat under the threats of hundreds of landscraper trucks. These landing fields are used to bring down troops, vehicles, supplies and ammunition, anything necessary to wage months, if not years of war on a planetary scale. In addition to the Imperial Guard, Armageddon is also reinforced by various Adeptus Astartes forces. Together numbering over 50,000, they are spread across the planet and the orbital defensive fleet. The ground forces from the Black Templar chapter made planetfall at Hades with 18 gunships and presented to General Lokurov with their full force of 900 Astartes. Of these 900, 100 battle brothers and 4 gunships will relocate to reinforce the Steel Legion and militia forces at Hive Helsreach. The flesh and blood forces of the Imperium are also joined by the god machines of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Legio Invigilata made planetfall in the ash wastes outside Hive Helsreach and began the arduous process of awakening the machine spirits of their war machines. How many of these engines will remain at Helsreach is yet unclear. Many of these engines will walk in support of Cadian shock troops and the warriors of the Salamanders chapter, out on the banks of the Hemlock River, on battlefields far outside the walls of the Hive. After his arrival at Hive Helsreach, Reclusor Grimaldus of the Black Templar assumes unofficial joint command of the city, together with Colonel Saren of the 101st Steel Legion, the overall commander of the Imperial forces at Helsreach. He immediately begins a review and memorization of the situation reports, a gargantuan task only an Astartes could be capable of completing. Food supplies, amount of clean water reserves, estimates of disease, medical facilities, logistics, landing platforms, air superiority, heavy defense placements, militia numbers, Hive defense forces and Imperial Guard. The numbers seem virtually endless. The Imperial Guard numbers alone take over 2 days to go through. Individual regiments, their officers, live fire training accuracy records, their citations, their shames, their moments of greatest glory, their insignia, weapons and ammunition supplies, access to armor units. 10 days after the Templars' arrival at Helsreach, this trial of reviewing millions upon millions of reports is interrupted by a siren. The Imperial fleet has engaged, and the orbital war begun. Martial law is announced and the city is sealed. 42 minutes after the sirens begin wailing, the first civilian riot begins. Born entirely of panic, it is quickly and violently suppressed by the Adeptus Arbites. Meanwhile, the Legio Invigilata demands 3 more days to finish refitting and rearming their titans out in the ash wastes. after which they will decide whether they will stand in defense of Helsreach or walk with the rest of their legion out on the banks of the Hemlock River. This angers the Reclusiarch, who demands an immediate audience with the Moderate Primus Casimir. However, the meeting does not bear fruit, and despite appealing to the Hive City's desperate need for titans, the Moderate Primus does not budge. Further enraged, Grimaldus decides to knowingly break Invigilata tradition by seeking direct audience with the Princeps Majoris, and together with his squad takes a land raider out to the ash wastes. Once the Reclusiarch and his squad of Astartes arrive, immediately a confrontation takes place. The Skitarii guard prevent his entry to the Titan Storm Herald to gain audience with the Princeps Majoris. His already tested patience wearing thin to the point of non-existence, Grimaldus orders his men to kill the Skitarii guards to forcefully gain access inside the Titan. Fortunately, this commotion attracts the attentions of the Princeps Majoris, and Grimaldus is granted an audience. During this audience, the Princeps Zarha requests Grimaldus to remove his helm. Impressed by the boldness of his intrusion and honored by the Reclusiarch's willingness to show his face to a mere mortal, she agrees. The third of the Legio Invigilata that are not yet at the Hemlock River will walk in defense of Helsreach, led by Storm Herald and Princeps Zarha herself. As the guard machines make their way inside the city walls 3 days later, the gates are finally closed and the city sealed. Helsreach is now ready. That evening, the sky above Helsreach catches fire. Above in the void, the battle had not fared well. The fleet's casualties soon reached over 1 million souls, and the 4 to 9 day estimate was abandoned. The planetary forces were informed that the defensive fleet could only hold 1 to 2 days at best. As the Orc fleet began to overwhelm the Imperial blockade, 37 enemy ships break through. 31 of them are annihilated by the orbital defense array, but 6 crash onto the planet's surface. One of these 6 is the strike cruiser Purest Intent. An Adeptus Astartes vessel lost 3 years prior, since found and defiled by the Orcs, breaks through the clouds. Thousands of men manning the immense walls around the city watch in awe as the wreckage blazes its way over the city. 18 seconds after it clears the city walls, it hits the planet's surface, the tremors from the impact shaking Helsreach to its foundation. Despite the violence of the crash, many of the Orcs manning the ship are expected to have survived. Understanding the need to bolster morale, Colonel Saren decides to attack the Purest Intent and purge it of any Orc survivors, securing a decisive victory for the Imperials. Commissar Falkov suggests sending a Titan to demolish the wreck where it stands, but Grimaldus decides to take his battle brothers instead. After all, the humans need a show of an overwhelming victory. The Orc survivors left in the ship are quickly purged by the 100 Astartes warriors. As they are preparing for withdrawal, Colonel Saren contacts them over Vox with grave news. The orbital war is lost. Battlefield Armageddon is in full retreat. The ground war for Armageddon had begun.